When any conflict arises, whether it is within the four walls of our home or in the wider world, it is only a symptom. The illness is somewhere inside in the human mind. Every conflict has its origin in the mind. Life is poetry. It is a continuous flow that's always in harmony. That flow carries every sentient being along with it on the current of time. The heart and mind are like the sun and earth. The heart is at the center, and the mind depends and revolves around the heart. Our perspective of the world and the perception of it are based in the mind. This may make the mind appear as the center of our being, and the heart becomes a part-time accessory. When we live out of the mind and not through the heart, conflict is bound to arise. Everybody has a similar instrument, the human body. No matter where we live on earth, the sun and the moon will visit everybody. It may not be at the same time, but everybody gets their turn. Just as the sun sweeps across the sky and blankets the surface of the earth with its golden light, we can, in our minds, cover the entirety of humanity in just one thought, either the thought of unity or the thought of division. Existence has given us the two instruments of the body and mind of equal importance. One, the body, the other, the mind. It shows us through the body that we are all similar, and everybody comes into the world after spending a significant amount of time in darkness. The other instrument, the mind, gives us a choice. If we choose the path of conflict, we continue to prolong the darkness. Just as the light of the world welcomes us each morning, the joy of oneness will embrace us when we open ourselves into the heart each and every moment. The mind and the body depend on the outer light, the sun. The heart takes us to the source of our own light, the light that shines upon the truth of our own being. The entirety of the current crop of humanity is one seed, the seed of our collective future. From one seed, a plant may emerge and sprout many flowers with innumerable petals. The fragrance of each flower and every petal is the same. Individual minds are like different flowers and petals that arise out of the same plant. Unlike a garden, where fragrance from different flowering plants all blend into one heavenly experience, there is rarely, if ever, a harmonious blending of human minds from different parts of the world. A collective human mind without conflict is essentially non-existent in our individual experience. Once conflict manifests through words and actions, it may be too late to effect a cure. Not only do we have to deal with the symptoms of the conflict, which are the external ramifications, but we will also have to work on the cure by finding the source within the human mind. But there may be severe damage before we can identify and correct the source of conflict. Like doctors who not only treat the symptoms of a disease, but also work to cure the disease itself, the symptoms of a conflict bring our attention to the presence of an illness that seeks a cure. Likewise, whenever there is conflict anywhere in the world, it must bring our attention back into the mind. This doesn't mean that we start to point fingers at another and say that they're in conflict and they're the source of conflict. We may not be directly or indirectly involved or even remotely connected with external conflict, but the very recognition of external conflict, the existence of conflict, even if unrelated to us, should make us look within and trigger a search for conflict within ourselves. Leaders in any capacity should function just as doctors, working on the symptoms of conflict while also emphasizing the search for a permanent cure. If the ego gets in the way, the attempted cure may worsen the disease of conflict that rages in the mind. Conflict need not always be external. It can remain a completely internal affair. Amongst all types of conflicts we are familiar with on the outside, there's one fundamental one on the inside that we tend to overlook. We are in constant conflict with our inner nature. Such conflict lies within everybody, and we should consider this as the source of all external ones. Understanding our nature and living in accordance with it doesn't necessarily mean we expose a soft underbelly to the world. As we grow in inner strength, the less we fear others and the world. Our nature isn't a fixed idea or a concept which we hold. Just as there is a continuous flow of life-giving blood throughout the body, there is a continual flow of qualities such as acceptance, forgiveness, contentment, peaceful coexistence when we become one with our nature. If blood stops even for a couple of minutes, the blood clots and the passage in the blood vessels is blocked, and fresh life-sustaining blood that the heart continuously spreads throughout the body cannot reach that part. Likewise, the mind's energy clots and blocks the flow of energy of our innate nature when the mind begins to harbor thoughts of division and conflict. Restraining inner conflict from spilling into the world requires a lot of strength and endurance on our part. It is easy to take an outer stand, but it is hard to take an inner stand against our own mind when it wants to spread conflict outside. The heart remains a silent spectator to all conflicts. It cannot do much after any conflict has claimed its prize, which is the division of mankind. Such divisions run deep, cutting across generations, and they become etched into the wall of stone that part of the mind may turn into. But the heart can do wonders if its ways are followed in the early stages of any conflict before it has had a chance to spill over into the external world and contaminate other minds. When we operate through the mind, we become very selective. And when we work through the heart, we open ourselves. There is fear when the mind is involved. The heart represents fearlessness. The most fearless humans are also the most protected. These are the infants and young children who know nothing of the mind, but everything of the heart. They can openly express themselves through the heart, and this is the basis of their protection. Once the ego arises, by which we see ourselves as separate from the rest, the heart moves aside, allowing the mind to express itself freely. The ego is like a microorganism. Such microbes can be beneficial or harmful. Our gut, for example, has a living biome made up of beneficial bacteria. There may be other kinds of bacteria that may also be very harmful for the body. Likewise, the ego becomes beneficial if we can use it as a platform to grow within and explore our own inner world. Inward growth is not uniform or predictable. There are no growth charts. Nobody can say this person is less evolved than the other person, as there are no established criteria. We can use the sense of individuality that the ego brings to grow at a pace that is comfortable to us. We all know how harmful the ego can be when we project it outward, seeking growth and expansion at the cost of others. When we block avenues for inward growth and expansion through living a world-centric life, wherein we are completely dependent on the world and others for importing happiness within our being. This energy of the mind is directed outwards. But when we choose to open ourselves to the possibility of inner growth, it does not interfere with outer expansion or harmony. It may, in fact, enhance and expand our outer horizons. Each individual is a door to the whole. Only the individual can access that door. Once this door is open, the fragrance of the inner being washes over not just the individual who has opened the door, but it also spreads into the world. Oneness involves embracing not just all of humanity in our thoughts, but embracing the entire field of thoughts themselves, not seeing division and conflict amongst thoughts. Conflict resides in thought. It can be transferred from one thought to another. It can be like a living virus right in the center of our mind. There's something useful in the existence of such conflict if we know how to use it. On the inward journey, we face numerous inner conflicts that may have nothing to do with external reality. After all, there are so many different worlds that we create in the mind, and we cannot avoid the roadblock of conflict as we move inwards. In the face of such inner conflicts, we can force them out of the way towards an idea or a concept, or we can wait till they dissipate and try to grow an understanding as to why that conflict is there in the first place. By forcing the conflict aside, we are imposing a form of violence on our own mind, and this will generate its own consequence and cascade of conflicts sometime later in time, later in life. Waiting and understanding are two important inner virtues. They are helpful in so many ways. Waiting opens the door to a fresh moment, and understanding keeps us in that moment that is free of any conflict. We are all waiting for the inevitable, which we don't like talking about. In the meantime, we are not growing in understanding. If we spend our time wisely working on ourselves, searching and cleaning the inside of the mind, and working through our own inner conflicts, the seed of understanding will surely sprout, and the heart will bear the fruits that the mind can enjoy forever.